This is the Climate Voices podcast, and I'm your host, Omesa Mukaya. I'm excited to host this second episode of the Voices of the Future series that we recently launched, where we're highlighting and shining spotlight on young trailblazers that are getting involved in finding solutions to the problems that we are facing at the moment and who are currently involved in environmental organizing and leading the journey against climate change. So joining us today is a very remarkable young person that I've met who is a high school senior at Weston High School, and who I understand is very soon going to be joining college. Jonathan Lan, welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for having me, Omis. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be able to share my story.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. I know you are involved in a lot of environmental conservation and environmental organizing and climate organizing. But before we start diving into that conversation, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment, about how you kind of got into this journey of environmental organizing and climate organizing at a young age?
Yeah, I think I've always been really passionate about the environment. I think I grew up with sort of all the headlines of like fires in California, like there's all these like natural disasters going on. And at the same time, I would watch David Attenborough documentaries and just see sort of like the beauty of the world and the understanding that it was being destroyed, it was being ruined by something that is very preventable, frankly, sort of gave me a great sense of injustice about climate change as a whole. And I think I really wanted to do as much as I could about it, but I think before I got into organizing, I really didn't know how I could make sort of like an impact beyond just like recycling or composting or like watering my garden with water I collected from the rain, like all those different things. Yes, they can make my own life decrease my sort of personal footprint, but I don't think they make as much of an impact in like the grand scheme of things when there's 8 billion other people living in the world. So really, like I think my journey into activism and organizing really started on Lobby Day in 2022. So the Mass Youth Climate Coalition hosts a Lobby Day every year, and basically this year we had like 200 activists meet with over 50 legislators to talk about a few climate justice priorities. And we have 6 different sort of policy principles that we sort of choose bills and lobby for. But my first lobby day was on Zoom because of COVID. But I thought it was like really amazing to meet with decision makers, my state representative, my state senator, people that actually do have power to make a lot of change in state policy. So I thought that was really powerful. And then meeting other climate activists that sort of went through this similar journeys that I did, that had a lot of passion for our planet and the people and all of its inhabitants, really I think inspired me to stay involved with this.
I sometimes find it fascinating that we get inspired to act based on not just for the good of what is happening at the moment, but because of the bad things that are happening, that from the young age you are realizing that this is happening and you want to stand up and be part of the change. I love your story, given the work that you are doing at the moment and how you have really managed to be around, not just organizing and working with the young people, but also being a part of the young people that are influencing the legislative processes. And for instance, you have mentioned a couple of things like influencing the bill with the legislators here in Massachusetts and influencing some of those bills that you think are important in helping solve some of the crises that we are seeing at the moment. I mean, you have mentioned during COVID is the time that you really saw the need to be involved in this journey, but is that like the one pivotal moment in your life that you thought, this is the time that I need to go out there and do something, because if I don't, the world is not headed in a great direction, that led you to where you are at the moment?
I would say so. Yeah, I think Lobby Day was definitely the biggest moment for me. I think I'd always sort of had that, I guess, like itch to go out there and like make a big impact, I guess, and really like make a dent in this fight against climate change. And I really never had even knew of any lobbying, or I didn't even know what lobbying was. I didn't know how to influence policy at all. Being introduced to all of these things for the first time was really empowering for me. And I think in a way that's why I care so much about climate education, is just helping other young people have access to the same opportunities, the same young people that may care a ton about climate change but don't really know what to do about them. That sort of connection connection can be made in the classroom, and then that sort of impact can be fostered outside of it. So yeah, I would say lobby day was definitely like a pivotal moment for me. I think another one was sort of like the town meeting in Weston that I have given a couple speeches at, and I think in a way I'm sort of, it's sad that I'm now 18. I'm now going to be going off to college and doing all these things because people really listen to young people. I feel like young voices. Like when a high school student gets up in front of like all these like 60-year-olds in town meeting and then makes a speech about, say, like the energy code that we like want to be adopting, or a new bike path that we want to build in Weston, like people really do listen. So that was another pivotal moment for me that showed me, I guess, just how powerful my voice could be and the voices of other young people could be, because I think it really, I mean, there were pretty close votes, and I think the speeches that me and my peers had given really made a difference.
That sounds very inspiring. You mentioned climate education, and understand that you've been involved in that process, in especially testifying for bringing climate education into the K-12 curriculum. And it's something that, I met when I met you giving a speech at the conference recently, something that I know you're very passionate about. Can you briefly talk about your involvement in that and how it's going at the moment?
Yeah, so the climate education campaign has sort of been a big part of the Mass Youth Climate Coalition for a long time. When I first got started, there was a climate education bill that we lobbied for, and I think it made it out of its first committee, but a lot of the clauses in it had been cut, and basically it was a pretty useless bill then that kind of like encouraged people to teach climate in science classrooms, which there already is a lot of standards for. The second year, so then we really focused on finding the pieces of climate education that we thought would pass, and the Youth Climate Coalition, all of us sort of wrote a bill together related to climate change. I feel like really it was difficult because we definitely, one of our great challenges was that we struggled to find a lot of momentum, and also it didn't really help that teachers were sort of opposed. Some teachers were opposed to, I guess, the way that we wanted to implement climate education. They really don't like education mandates, and legislators don't really like to enforce them like have the mandates in the first place. So that was definitely a challenge for us. It's just like finding the way to implement climate education, whether through standards or mandates. There's all sorts of sort of problems when we require climate education. So this year, I think really one of our great successes was when myself and a couple peers, we testified before the education committee in around November, and I think the chairman of the education committee, Senator Jason Lewis, I think he was really moved by what we had to say and wanted to work more directly with us to sort of like create a climate education bill together. So we met with his staffers, we've met with basically other staffers within the education committee, and they wrote a bill based on sort of like the priorities that we wanted to make sure were in the bill, and they passed it out of the education committee. So now it's in the Ways and Means Committee in the Massachusetts government, and it's on the House side, it's 4419. I don't remember the Senate numbers, and then we've sort of been having a big focus on it ever since. And I think the difference between the main sort of qualities of our education bill that I think are important is that it's interdisciplinary. It's teaching climate in sort of a space beyond just the science classroom. It's justice oriented. It recognizes that climate change impacts people in disproportionate ways, and it's solutions focused. I think it connects youth with organizing opportunities. It works alongside the civics bill that was actually a mandate and passed the legislature a few years ago. And really, like, it makes sure that the solutions focused piece is particularly important to me, because it really, like, oftentimes I feel like we're only taught about, climate change is happening, like greenhouse effect, like all these things. But if we don't have the solutions alongside of it, that definitely breeds a lot of anxiety among young people that there's this like crazy thing happening and we don't really know what to do about it. So I think it's very important to teach about the solutions.
You seem to be like all round and be involved in a lot of things things, and I admire your passion and understanding at this age. The way you're breaking it down and showing the interconnection between not just education, but what is happening not just here, but for other marginalized communities. I like that you mentioned that because of the disproportionate impacts of climate change, and you're really doing an amazing job and inspiring a number of young people to also stand up and do something that you say the older generation is not really doing a lot. And given that you mentioned something that I find pretty fascinating, that the teachers weren't kind of supportive in the way to integrate this kind of education into the curriculum. Do you think there's a specific reason why that is the case?
I did meet with teachers unions, and we do now have the support of many of the Massachusetts teachers unions. But I think teachers in general are sort of against any sort of, I guess, top-down imposing on what they have to teach.
Yeah.
And especially if there are no resources to sort of get in, we find professional development for climate incredibly important because it's difficult for them to get into this new space, even if many of them want to. Making sure that there are enough resources for teachers to be able to actually teach climate has been very important for us, and it's sort of a need that we've recognized as we met with many teachers unions across Massachusetts.
I'm glad that some of these ideas are coming from the young people, from yourself, that this is what we want to be taught. This is what we have seen happening around the world, and demanding that in your organizing journey. Are there some challenges that you've faced that have been standing in your way of activism, and is there a specific way maybe you have solved those that you can share with the listeners, especially the young people that would also be facing some of the challenges, or who are currently facing some of the challenges and don't know how to progress beyond that?
I think I think I want to use, not to be very repetitive, but I think I want to use this climate education campaign as an example again. I think sort of in our early stages, we were really focused on getting the bill passed through a few specific legislators. And when those legislators weren't particularly inclined to, I guess, really put themselves out there on our behalf, we sort of were stuck. We are sort of our climate champions were, when they weren't acting as much as possible and being as proactive as possible, it was difficult for us to really move the needle and build a lot of momentum for the bill. So I think really when we started looking at other ways to get a climate education bill passed, when we started building relationships and sharing our stories and testifying before the Senate chair on education in Massachusetts, we really sort of looked at other channels to get this sort of legislation passed. And we really didn't for a long time we weren't, but we made sure we weren't just stuck behind representatives that maybe didn't have the same drive to act now as we did. So there are many ways to get something done, and in finding those other ways, finding the people that will be more receptive to you, that will listen to your voice and want to represent you as best as possible, that will sort of guide a lot of change, I think.
One story that I always share with everyone is when I was joining college, I actually took environmental science because I couldn't get into the program that I wanted to. So I ended up taking environmental science because it was the one that was available. I can't really say that I took it because of the passion and because I wanted to do something for the environment, but back then I couldn't get into a program that I wanted to, and which led me to this. But I later on got to love it and tried to do something better about it. But I understand that you've been involved from high school and you actually know what you're going to do. I understand you're a high school senior at the moment and very soon joining college. So do you think this has informed what you're going to do specifically in college, and do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I mean, definitely I've sort of always known, I guess, I wanted to go into an environmental career, but this definitely shaped, I guess, the way I think about the environment. I think before I got into policy and lobbying, I wanted to go into environmental engineering. I wanted to basically create the solutions that we would need to fight climate change. But I'm sort of seeing throughout my activism journey that so many of the solutions have already been invented. I think really political will and financing, I guess, are the two main barriers towards climate action. Now, I think we have many of the solutions that we need. So really, I shifted my focus from an engineering science perspective to more of that like policy, humanities, even finance or business side of things. So I want to be doing environmental studies in college, majoring in that. And then I guess I'm still not sure if I want to do more of a policy focused or more of like a business finance focus, because the both are, I think, really important ways to create a lot of change in the climate space. So I guess I'll definitely take classes in both and figure out what I want my secondary focus to be. But definitely environmental studies is all about like, I mean, it is part of policy, economics, and really like the humanities side of climate change, like ethics related to it. It's a bit of philosophy. I'm really interested in exploring a lot of sort of and really connecting, I guess, like the reading I've done throughout the years and just like my experiences into like a more formalized degree. So that'll be very exciting.
It is very exciting, and it's good to know what you want in life, to what you want to do in future. And I'm so thrilled that you already know what you want to do. And what I'll say is there's only one way to find out, just get into it. I mean, there'll be a lot of learning. I always favor the way of learning while doing something. So while you are in college, I mean, you're going to find a lot of things that you want to do. And sometimes goals change actually. So you might end up finding all those interconnections.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to just like meet everyone in college too. People that are, I feel like in high school, I guess it's sort of difficult to find that many people that are very passionate about the environment. In college, when there's a major for it, and when there's people that apply into that major, there are so many people with like the same sort of stories or similar stories that I have. And so I'm really excited to meet those people and work with them to build a better, more sustainable future.
I'm sure you're going to find a lot of those, and I wish you all the best in college. There's been all these talks of something you mentioned actually in the beginning about despair and the youth anxiety around the climate change issues that are happening, coupled with other things like biodiversity loss and pollution. I think the UN calls those triple crisis, something like that. But do you feel like there's hope for the planet, first of all, as a young person? And is there like a future that you envision for the planet that you think if everyone did what they're supposed to do, we will have that? And do you see like any role in this for the young people, for this future that you envision, having in future, moving into college, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of like a spectrum of people that are very hopeful and a spectrum of people that maybe don't think the future is so bright. But definitely I've found a lot of hope personally in sort of the actions that I've been able to take in the experiences that I have. I think sort of that at the Brandeis conference, actually, the keynote speaker, Therese Gennari, I think her whole focus has been on climate optimism and finding optimism in your own action and being really like empowered to do more because of that. So I thought personally like that really resonated with me and how I sort of find that optimism in the work that I'm doing. And I think young people definitely have a big role to play when it comes to shaping our future. I think really our voices are particularly powerful, and as I've seen and noticed in town meeting, it really can drive a lot of change. I think oftentimes people, when they're sort of trying to persuade, there's like the whole pathos, logos, and ethos kind of like triangle of persuasion. I think a lot of times, like I've seen in like lobbying meetings, like the statistics, like all those things, like the data, that doesn't necessarily change a legislator's mind as much as the young person's story can. And as we're continuing to meet with people in power and eventually become people, hopefully holding positions in which we can create a lot of policy change or business change or whatever it ends up being, I hope that we can, I guess, keep these experiences in mind and understand that climate change is a problem that we need to really focus on. And I guess I do also want to say that I think focusing on climate, there are so many co-benefits, I guess, to focusing on climate. It can really improve the way we eat. It can improve the way we get around. It can improve urban design, and like all of these. It can improve resilience along the coast and along communities that are sort of next to fossil fuel plants right now. Like really, like it can improve public health. All of these things that come along with focusing on climate, I think, will really make the world and the planet a better place. And I think another, I guess, challenge right now is the whole sustainable development piece of things. And you know, like people are saying, oh, like the global south is going to need like fossil fuels to really have their transition the same way as like many like the United States and like other countries have done. And I think that's a little bit of a I don't know. I do think it's possible that people can jump over fossil fuels and sort of build a more sustainable future without those sort of intermediaries. So I am really interested in sustainable development as a whole as well. But I don't think I know enough to really like talk too much about that yet.
You're already on the right path. You're already doing a lot, and we can't wait to see what you do in future. And I like that you're mentioning that the young people have a really great place in shaping this kind of future that we envision. So is there any advice that you have, especially for the students who want to get involved in environmental conservation or any other courses like climate action, that like the ones that you're involved in at the moment, that, for example, don't know where to start?
Absolutely. I mean, I think 4 years ago, I was exactly in that position. And I think I've been really lucky to have had the opportunities I've had. I've been really lucky to go to Lobby Day and just like randomly hear about Lobby Day and like want to go, and then join the Youth Climate Coalition, and have a wonderful mentor like Eb and Vine, and really just like learn so much from the people around me, the other youth that have been doing this for a while, and his experiences with policy and with the environment as well. So that's been, I think, really powerful. I think the main message that I want to share is that if you're looking to get into this space, there are many people that have been doing it for a long time. I find in climate there's a lot of young people, and there's a lot of older people like 60 and up that are already retired. And it's funny because these like older people, they were like the hippies back in the day, and they were the ones like, I guess, like driving a lot of change, like doing a lot of activism. So I think that there's people with so much 60 years of experience like doing these things. So there are spaces already out there for young people to join and learn from and affect a lot of change that way. I've also been very lucky to sort of have my town, Weston's leaders reach out to me and work directly with me as we like sort of advance town sort of climate policy within the town. That's been a great opportunity for me as well. And reaching out and building those relationships with people that want to mentor you and want to empower you and give you the opportunities to take action. The people are out there.
I already saw the kind of advice that you gave to the young people at Weston High School that I work with. It was like really nice to have you again come to the Youth Action Collaborative and talk to your fellow high school students who are like already standing up and looking for ways to be involved. And your story is as interesting as it is inspiring for not just the young people but also for the older generations as well, who recognize that the younger generation is standing up for something great and in shaping their future. So as we come to the close of this, before I ask like if you have any call to action, is there one thing, probably maybe you've mentioned it during this conversation, but is there like one thing that you've learned from all these experiences that you find surprising, or which surprised you the most?
I think before I got into climate, really, I didn't know anything about the justice aspect of it. I think the fact that it's become sort of a big piece of my work now, and the fact that really, like in my Instagram bio, for example, it's people over profits. Like I think climate is such like a people-centered thing that when focused just on biodiversity a lot, which is very important, and it's the reason I got into this. When we focus on conservation, that we sort of forget that it's a justice issue and that people are at the center of all of it. So learning about that and meeting people that are from environmental justice communities and do already have the impacts of climate change upon them, I think that definitely surprised me the most and really like left a mark on me and makes it something that I want to continue to focus on.
Absolutely. We're coming to the almost the end of this. I will also love to connect sometime soon when you're in college to see how you're progressing, and we can have this conversation again and see how your experiences are, and definitely share some of the stories from meet fellow young people who are so passionate about conservation in college. Yeah, but for now, is there like a message you want to pass to anyone who's listening to this, any call to action you would like to share with our listeners spread across the world? Our podcast has an audience in over 45 countries across the world, so this message is like going to be shared across different people across the planet. So do you have any kind of call to action or any message you want to pass to anyone listening to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing I'd say is that it's not hard to get into climate activism. As long as you can tell a story, and really everyone has a story to tell, I think you can really make a lot of change, because there are people that care. There are people that will listen to you, even if there are also people that maybe will dismiss you and don't care. So not giving up and sort of finding the route towards change, and understanding that it's not just like one person that sort of owns your future. And that there are many people that you can go to and tell your story to, and basically drive a lot of change that way. It's really possible, I think, to make a difference in climate and move the needle. And Omesa, I mean, what you're doing with your podcasts and having people also tell their stories, I think is also very important. Because there's so many reasons why people get into climate or people care about climate, and understanding that, I think, makes it a lot easier for people in power, and not even just people in power, but people in general to care about climate as well. So yeah, I think that would be my message. And I also want to recognize and appreciate you for putting this podcast together and providing a platform for people to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for, first of all, being involved as well, for sharing that message of hope that people should not give up, especially young people, because we can't afford to give up. And as in your own words, you say it's easier to get involved. So for young people, any young person who's listening out there, get involved like Jonathan. Let's all shape our future and the future that we want to see. And thank you so much for all that you do, for coming to the show and finding time to do this and sharing your insights and your journey, because these are the kind of voices that we want to share with everyone to inspire everyone that wants to get involved. And the planet definitely needs more of this and more of your voices. And I wish you all the best in the future and as you go to college.
Thank you so much, Amesa. Really, really a pleasure to be here and just be a little part of the climate movement. So thank you.
And absolutely. Thank you so much again, everyone who's listening to this. This is the Climate Voices. Until next time, bye-bye.